Craig Hughson is a former Chief of Staff at Queen's Park and a former Liberal candidate. He's now principal at the Aurora Strategy Group. Thanks for joining us, Craig. Lots to talk about.
It's been an exciting couple of weeks.
Yes, so we now have the results from the federal election, and in Ontario, 80 of the seats went Liberal. Quite a turnaround from the previous election. How do you find that happened over the last few weeks?
Well, they say a week is an eternity in politics, and with an 11-week campaign, we certainly saw several eternities play out. We had the start of the campaign where Justin Trudeau was in third place, and some had written him off and thought this was going to be a two-horse race right to the finish line between Mulcair and Harper. Obviously, hindsight being what it is, we saw that clearly wasn't the case. And Harper ran a campaign where he got distracted from their key strong, stable economy message that they were really good at sticking to in the past. And I think that certainly hurt Harper. Mulcair ran a campaign that tried to convince Canadians he was the government in waiting and played it safe, and then got outflanked by the Liberals on the balanced budget piece that I think was detrimental to the NDP. And a lot of their key voters, or normal voters, probably dripped over to the Liberals. And we look at the huge change in seats and obviously change in government, but the one thing that really didn't change was Harper's vote tally. He went from 39% of the vote in the 2011 election, where he formed a pretty strong majority, to this campaign where he still got 32% of the vote. So core conservatives, true blue believers, still voted Stephen Harper this time around.
But what was more interesting from my perspective was the return of the Liberal voter, the traditional voter who took a pass with Stéphane Dion and Michael Ignatieff, has now appeared to come back to the Liberal fold. And those are the soft Tories and the soft NDP voters, and now they're coming back.
Yeah, in healthy numbers that even Chrétien didn't see in Quebec, for example. So they came back, and we found some more. The campaign that Justin Trudeau ran was flawless, even with what could have been a scandal near the end. Was handled quickly and took the wind out of the sails when his co-campaign director advised some oil types that how to lobby a future Liberal government, and that was negated before that story caught legs. So everything on the Trudeau campaign went off without a hitch.
One of the things you mentioned just a few moments ago was how the NDP appeared to have been outflanked by the Liberals. And it reminds me of what happened during the provincial election, where Kathleen Wynne outflanked Andrea Horwath and appeared to be the more progressive party than the NDP. And so it seemed that the Trudeau campaign took a page right out of the Kathleen Wynne book.
Well, not surprising given the amount of cross-pollination between the Kathleen Wynne team and the Justin Trudeau team. Names like David Hurley and Pat Sorbera were quite active and quite influential in making sure that Ontario's message got to the Trudeau team early and often. And I would think every staffer at Queen's Park was voluntold they had to be part of the Trudeau team wherever they were, and it worked.
So what are the messages that you take from this campaign?
Well, first and foremost, the Canadians don't like divisive politics. We saw Harper run on a campaign of fear and talked about canceling people's citizenship, terror hotlines, not talking about hope and optimism and a promise for the future that Trudeau really stuck to. And he said at the outset that he would run a positive campaign and no attack ads, and he really did. And he stuck to it and was rewarded handsomely for it.
Let's talk a little bit more about the impact of this election provincially. And it's no secret that Stephen Harper and Kathleen Wynne didn't get along, and they certainly had enough animosity towards each other during the campaign. Stephen Harper actually went out of his way to attack Kathleen Wynne at stops in Ontario, and Kathleen Wynne, for her part, certainly bashed away at the federal Conservatives. What do you think the relationship is going to be with the new Prime Minister Trudeau?
Well, we certainly have seen our share of Fed bashing from the Ontario Premier, be it our current Premier Wynne or our previous Premier McGuinty. There was no love lost either way in that relationship. So we've already seen Premier Designate Trudeau pay a visit to Queen's Park to visit with Kathleen Wynne. He does owe her a debt of gratitude. How that debt of gratitude will pay into tangible results for Ontario is still yet to be seen, but we will see a very cozy relationship given the amount of support that Wynne and her team dumped into the Trudeau campaign, and she put all her cards on the table and went all in.
So let's shift our focus just slightly, and how does this election impact the provincial PCs and the NDP? I can't recall Patrick Brown out there meeting with Stephen Harper during the campaign or stumping for very many federal Conservative campaigns, and he was a former MP who jumped ship to come over to the province.
He does probably count his lucky stars. He bailed out of Ottawa when he did to seek the Ontario leadership, and is quite happy where he is today, I suspect.
And on the Liberal side, the fact that there's now 80, and most of those seats mirror the seats held by their provincial counterparts, must be a very gratifying sign for Kathleen Wynne and her team.
Well, yes, I expect a Liberal love-in. We're not going to see any Fed bashing or province bashing. One thing that, having been around when Chrétien and was in power, the provincial and federal wing of the Liberal Party didn't always see eye to eye. They didn't get along. They weren't the same people. And the Ottawa Liberals held their nose a little bit about Ontario politics, didn't really care for us. So we have a complete reshuffle of that deck now, and the team is quite united.
Well, we'll see how long that Liberal love-in lasts. I was chatting with Craig Hughson from Aurora Strategy Group. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.